from the heart of the Shire, through the depths of Moria, to the ends of Middle-earth. It's the Babylon Bee reads The Lord of the Rings. With your hosts, Kyle Mann and Dan Coates.
Welcome everybody to the Babylon Bee reads Lord of the Rings. I'm Kyle Mann, I'm the editor-in-chief of the Babylon Bee. This is my good buddy Dan Coates, who's a producer at the Babylon Bee. This is Jonathan Watson, who is the grand poobah of theonering.com.
Sure, sounds good to me. I like it.
And which is a website where you can read about Lord of the Rings stuff. And buy jewelry.
Yeah, no.
No jewelry.
And get involved. There's message boards.
You know what's hilarious is we get a bunch of ads on our Babylon Bee website for like beekeeper stuff because they like think we got it nailed. We absolutely got this nailed. There's a bunch of beekeepers that come to this site. So I wonder if you guys get a lot of like.
You know, I don't do any other ads other than like Amazon links and things like that. Yeah, we were getting weird ads too, so I'm like, we'll just cut those out. And just
Who needs money?
No.
Yeah.
We don't know because we don't know if they have any in the Shire.
Yes.
It's all trades. So
well, we figured it out. There was some kind of coin, but that was like Gondor currency, and we couldn't figure out like if anybody. I assume they just have like copper coins.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we decided.
It's not fiat, whatever it is.
Yeah.
No.
It's not fiat currency. It's definitely precious metals. They might have Bitcoin. Anyway, so this week we're discussing a shortcut to mushrooms. So typically what we'll do is we'll spend about a half hour discussing each chapter, and we'll let you know what the reading is for next week at the end of the episode, and then we go into another half hour of discussion exclusively for subscribers. So if you don't subscribe to the Babylon Bee, go to babylonbee.com/plans and subscribe, and you can get to our mailbag section, and maybe we'll chug some golden ale in the...
It's been super cool to see how many people have subscribed to the Babylon Bee.
Get a lot of
bought the books for the first time. I'm reading it because you guys are reading it.
Yeah, as much as a fan
that's pretty cool. We appreciate that.
As much as a fan I am of the Babylon Bee, that actually makes me happier when I see someone say, "I bought Lord of the Rings just to follow along." How cool is that?
That is cool.
I can't imagine living my life and not having read Lord of the Rings.
It's like we did something.
We
accomplished something with our life.
So thanks for following along, everybody. So this is Shortcut to Mushrooms, Chapter 4. So we've got Frodo and Sam and Pippin, and they are traveling across the countryside, and they're trying to avoid these Nazgul characters. So Gandalf has kind of figured out that this ring is the One Ring.com.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And
he's got to get out of the Shire.
But they're trying to do this. They don't do this in the movies. They're trying to do this kind of secret thing where they're pretending that Frodo is moving.
Yeah, trying to get to a house in Crick Hollow where Mary is waiting. He's got the house ready for him. So everybody except Frodo and Sam are in on this thing. Like, Frodo is going to Crick Hollow, and this is where he's going to live now by Brandy Hall and the Brandy Buck people.
So Frodo and Sam know. We're trying to get to Rivendell, but nobody else even knows that, which is probably pretty smart because the Nazgul are asking all around. And you know the way that hobbits all talk? If they had let that slip even to the little group of friends, you know that would have been...
It's out right away,
Yeah, you know that would have been gone. So last chapter, they were running from the Nazgul. Actually, one of the ring wraiths comes floating in over the ground, like crawling along the ground, sniffing at them, and it gets really close. And when the elves show up and kind of save them from that, and he runs away. Yeah. So then they hang out with Gildor. They have a big old party in the woods, eat a bunch of food, wake up in the morning feeling refreshed. And that's where this chapter kicks off. So what jumped out at you guys in this one? What did you guys like in this chapter?
Well, I like how right away the chapter starts and Pippin and Frodo immediately are like just bickering and bantering with each other. Frodo wakes up and Pippin is already saying, "Well, I would have eaten your breakfast, but Sam insisted that I leave you some." And then as they go throughout the chapter, they're kind of bickering about which way to go. Pippin wants to go up to Stock where the Golden Perch is so he can get some of that ale. And he's complaining to Frodo, Frodo wants to stay off the road, cut through the country. And he's like, well, it's all bogs and ditches, and it takes us away from... I think he says something like, shortcuts make long delays. Yeah. And then he says something about the how good the ale is at the Golden Perch. And Frodo's like, well, that settles it. Shortcuts make long delays, but the Golden Perch would make a longer delay. So we're not doing that.
And I love how they have this quest for the fate of the world, and Pippin's chief concern is how do I bend the path so we can get to this
the golden perch.
The golden perch. It's just so Hobbitesque.
Yeah.
Hobbitonian.
Yeah.
Hobbitonian.
Can we do that?
Hobbitonian.
Sure.
The other thing that struck me right in the beginning was where Pippin says, do you think she'll see anything of the riders? Asked Pippin cheerfully. Under the morning sun, the prospect of seeing a whole troop of them did not seem very alarming to him. Like, wow, one night, and he's like, black riders, not that big of a deal. Let's go to Golden Perch.
Yeah.
Right? So they don't. Right away, they're able to like get back into their own way of living and not worry about the grand things that are like coming bearing down on them. But yeah, Frodo's answers are so short. Yes, probably. Not much. We didn't discuss it. Right.
Hobbits are so resilient just in their will, and their heart and their attitude. Yeah. Where they can always just kind of bounce back and they're like, let's get some beer.
Yeah.
I just love the line where it's Frodo's talking to Pippin and he says, now leave me in peace for a bit. I don't want to answer a string of questions while I'm eating. I want to think. And Pippin says, good heavens, at breakfast?
Yeah.
It's just so funny. It's so very Hobbit-esque. And it reminds, like, that idea of the hobbits loving the food and the breakfast, and don't do it, just leave me alone with the food is at least in the movie they try to come out with a little bit of that with, first breakfast, second breakfast, all that sort of stuff. They throw that in there, but I just love that little zing. Why would you want to think at breakfast? Just enjoy the food.
Yeah. Yeah. That comes up again later in the chapter where they're kind of in fear of the ring race again, the Nazgul, and they drink that flask of whatever the elves gave them. Yeah. And they kind of temporarily forget that they're being chased by these horrible, horrible creatures, and they just start singing in the wilderness there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just kind of interesting.
So Frodo says, "I'm leaving the Shire as soon as ever I can. In fact, I have made up my mind now, not even to wait a day at Crick Hollow if I can be helped." "Very good, sir. You still mean to come with me?" "I do." "It is going to be dangerous, Sam. It is already dangerous. Most likely, neither of us will come back." "If you don't come back, sir, then I shan't, that's certain," said Sam. "Don't you leave him," they said to me. "Leave him," I said. "I never mean to. I'm going with him if he climbs to the moon. And if any of those black riders try to stop him, they'll have Sam Gamgee to reckon with," I said. They laughed.
Get you someone to look at you the way Sam looks at Frodo.
Yeah. Get yourself a Sam in life.
Yeah. This is very cool.
That's fantastic. We'll also, when we get to Farmer Maggot, we'll see this, but the hobbits, they do have, they're afraid of the Black Riders, obviously, but when they are kind of at arm's length, they're a few miles away, they haven't seen them in a while, they really do buck up with like the stout talk, and they're like, big talk, I'll fight the Black Riders, no problem.
Another interesting, right after Sam and Frodo are talking like that, they ask each other about the elves, or Frodo asks them about the elves, "Do you like them still now that you've had a closer view?" And he says, "They're quite different from what I expected, so old, and so young, and so gay, and sad, as it were." And I've been going through the Silmarillion again, and one of the things that Tolkien talks about is that death is the gift of men, right? That death is a release. And so when he says this, it kind of harkens back to the whole idea that they're old, but they look young, but they're old because the weariness of life is always on them, and they're thousands of years old, essentially. And so even Sam can see that there's something different about the elves that gives them this gravity that's almost like not... the glory of the elves was diminished a little bit because they're old and they're sad, and but he still remembers it, and so it calls back to that the gift of men is death, and that becoming old is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, when I was younger and I read it, and I read the gift of men is death, I'm like, that sucks. Elves get immortality and shiny blonde hair and all this stuff, and then the men they're like death. Goodbye. But as I get older, I'm like, I see that as being a gift,
Is the shiny blonde hair a Jacksonian thing, or does it actually say in Tolkien?
I don't remember if they're all blonde, but
no, they're not. Yeah, there are.
Just making sure, because we got some hate mail about this.
Well, we'll get to this in the subscriber.
There is, in particular, there's a guy called the Dark Elf, Eol, who's this anyway. So, but he has black hair but very fair skin, and so different colors. I don't know if there's a particular. All elves look this way.
Yeah. Well, in The Hobbit, they look like Keebler elms, so I guess it depends on what you're reading. Sam says that the elves seem to be a bit above my likes and dislikes. which is an interesting thing, that they're kind of just this like immortal thing. They're not.
They're,
It doesn't really matter what you think of them, you know.
yeah, they're
is
somewhere in
interesting.
between.
Yeah. Frodo asks him if he feels the need to leave the Shire now that he's already gotten his one wish. And he says, "Yes, sir, I don't know how to say it, but after last night I feel different. I seem to see ahead in a kind of way. I know we are going to take a very long road into darkness, but I know I can't turn back. It isn't to see elves now, nor dragons, nor mountains that I want. I don't rightly know what I want, but I have something to do before the end, and it lies ahead, not in the Shire. I must see it through, sir, if you understand me."
I think that harkens back to the line that Gildor said to Frodo in the previous chapter, where he says, "The wide world is all about you. You can fence yourselves in, but you cannot forever fence it out." And I think Sam is no longer fenced in.
Yeah.
The world is opened up to him, and now something greater is approaching him, and he doesn't know what it is, but he feels it.
Yeah. He got woke.
Yeah.
He got woke to the struggle of Middle Earth.
Kyle,
You can't take me anywhere, huh?
we have a cool guest come in, and this is what you do.
I can't stop. There's a lot of walking.
There's more walking out.
There's some more walking.
Okay, so one of the things that through the previous chapters that I've been noticing as I read through it again, and every time I see it, is there's a lot of anthropomorphization of the world around them, particularly the forests and things like that. And where we're going to go is like the Old Man Willow and the Ents and things like that. But we hear words like in this chapter, they had packs to carry, and the bushes and brambles were reluctant to let them through. There's a lot of whispering, a lot of sighing. So it's almost like I would guess. I mean, Tolkien, I'm sure, intended it, but there's a lot of they're living things. Like these aren't just it's not still life to be looked at, but things are affecting you there even. And those words, I think, lead us into believing that the world is living, and that something like Old Man Willow could actually be there.
Yeah, and he's building up to it, where I think in the earlier chapters they were talking about rumors of trees that move, and they didn't really know it was just out there somewhere, and now the forest is kind of conspiring against them in some way.
Yeah, like even in the previous chapter, Three's Company, the west wind was sighing in the branches, leaves were whispering, which is a good way of saying like you hear the shh of the leaves, but leaves are whispering says a little bit more than just the sound that they make.
Yeah,
they're talking to each other.
Yeah, so they're trying to.
Is this where they drink the elven thing when they start singing?
Yes.
Yeah, they get the flasks out, and they find out that the elves have put something in there. They're like a clear, fresh-smelling. Here it is, a clear drink, pale golden in color, had the scent of honey made of many flowers, and was wonderfully refreshing. And then soon they were laughing, snapping their fingers at rain and at black riders. Yeah, so the last few miles they felt would soon be behind them.
I mean, this was like a single malt elven. Something or another.
So the song, are we singing the song? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ho, 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 to the bottle I go, to heal my heart and drown my woe. Rain may fall and wind may blow, but many miles be still to go. But under a tall tree I will lie, and let the clouds go sailing by. Yeah.
Well done.
But I love how they're being chased by these evil, malevolent, invisible things that are crawling on the ground and smelling for them, and then they just start breaking out into a big song, the shanties or whatever.
Sea shanties. They're singing sea shanties. Is that a meme?
But of course, as soon as they do that, what do they hear? They hear right after that.
Yeah, ho, 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 they began again louder, and then they suddenly stopped. Frodo sprang to his feet, and a long-drawn wail came down the wind, like the cry of some evil and lonely creature. It rose and fell, and ended on a high, piercing note. Even as they sat and stood, as if suddenly frozen, it was answered by another cry, fainter and further off, but no less chilling to the blood. There was then a silence, broken only by the sound of the wind and the leaves. Just like
that's pretty creepy.
That's creepy.
And I will say, that sound that they did in the films was pretty good.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was Fran Walsh, Peter Jackson's partner, who made that scream.
Oh, wow.
Which is interesting. But clearly they knew something about that. But and then Frodo, right after he hears that, he says, "It was a call or a signal. There were words in that cry, though I could not catch them." And that makes me think of either the Black Speech, right, which is the Ashnaz, or Gibutul, and and so it was not just a screech. There was something to it that was more than a screech. But
So then they keep walking. They kind of come out of the woods, and now they're like out in the open. They're out in the clearing, and then they start coming to lands that are a little more orderly.
Yeah, so they get off course. So they're trying to go up towards Buckleberry Ferry, and then they come out and they realize that they had gone too far to the south, and they see that it's off.
Yeah,
to their
we'll
left
put
now.
we'll put a map up and
Yeah, we'll put a
kind
map.
of draw a
We kinda
line.
show.
Yeah,
So they get a little lost, as one does walking in the woods.
and being chased by
Yeah.
Nazgul.
So now we meet Farmer Maggot, or at least we get to their land.
which is a really unfortunate name when you think about it.
Yeah,
I
that's,
was like, they've got Baggins, got Brandy Buck, but then you got
Maggot.
People have been
Farmer, that would not
criticizing.
be the name I'd want to have like on my boxes of goods.
Yeah.
Maggot.
People have been criticizing our
Farms.
pronunciation of names and words in Tolkien, so maybe it's like Maggot or
Maggot. Farmer Maggot. Farmer
Maggot.
Maggot's fine wines, mushrooms.
So they come to Farmer Maggot, and they run into him in the lane, and then he sicks the dogs out because he's already his alarm's already been raised earlier in the day, and then he finds out, oh, it's you. Like Pippin announces himself, and the dogs are snarling at Frodo. So Frodo's terrified because he's been here before when he lived at Brandy Hall, and he had trespassed on the farmer's land to steal mushrooms before, and I think we find out that the farmer had beaten him up and told him, "Hey, don't steal from me, and if you come back, I'll send the dogs after you."
And then he let the dogs loose and had them chase after Frodo.
So I think that there's a line in there where it's really funny, where it's like they're terrified, they're running from the Black Riders, and they get to this place, and Frodo's terrified even more because he's at Farmer Maggot's house. He's like, "Oh no!"
So who let the dogs out?
Oh. I don't know where to go from there.
Now we know.
Farmer Maggot.
Farmer Maggot.
Farmer Maggot. Oh man. So Pippin gets along great with this guy. They start talking to him, and they find out well, somebody was asking for Mr. Baggins, and I told them, you better go to Hobbiton because there's no Baggins around here, right?
Yeah, so he's telling them there's strange things going on. I'm being real careful because there's weird people wandering around.
Yeah.
And he brings them in. And then he also serves them beer.
Yeah.
And it says it almost made up for not getting to the Golden Fur. The Maggot Brewery. Maggot Microbrewery or something.
So the interesting part about that discourse, so like number one, like the farmer, he was offended more than anything that the Black Rider crossed his land. He's like, "What are you doing crossing my land? You know, get out, go on the road this time." And then he starts asking for Baggins, and he's not helping him out.
Well, and his dogs, or a grip at least, one of his dogs, took a sniff and he let out a yelp as he'd been stung and put down his tail and bolted off howling.
Yeah.
Which, if that were my dog and I knew my dog would be sick on people, then I would have some second thoughts about talking to this guy.
So they go inside. And doesn't he relay to Frodo like he was asking for you, and he said he'd give me a bunch of gold if
Yeah, he promised him gold, yeah.
if he comes this way, or I'll come back with some gold if you help me out.
And Maggot says, "No, you won't. You go back where you belong. Double quick. I give you 1 minute before I call all my dogs that went running off after sniffing you."
Yeah.
So,
I love how brave the farmer is in that interaction.
yeah.
He's just like, "Get out of here."
Yeah, so the ringwraith gives a hiss. Says it might have been laughing and it might not. And then he just rides off and almost runs over Farmer Maggot.
and then the takeaway that Farmer Maggot has from this to Frodo is like, you should never have gone mixing yourself up with Hobbiton folk.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
something about the people in Hobbiton.
what happens?
About this Black Rider.
What happens when you mess with people on the south side of the tracks, you know?
Yeah, he starts like kind of speculating, like, "Oh, you mixed yourself up with Bilbo, and he got his treasure in some kind of foul way that no good can come from it." And Frodo, he's like, "Yeah, you're onto something there, but I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you what."
Yeah, he's like, he's shocked at how close he guesses everything.
Right. So something about like this rural farmer that's just like very much wise, and he kind of knows, he's street smart.
Yeah, I like how the hobbits don't really know. The hobbits don't really know what the gravity it is of what they're dealing with and how powerful these things are that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
They just see someone's on my land, someone's messing with another hobbit, someone's come through the Shire,
Yeah.
and then they just get this like stout-heartedness, like he says, You'll have friends in these parts. If any of these black fellows come after you again, I'll deal with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what he goes back. That's what Gandalf sees in them.
Yeah.
That they don't see in themselves. And I love the way that Tolkien never tells us any of this. He shows it to us the entire book through. It's the right way to write. He never says, "Oh, hobbits are very brave when it comes to protecting their land."
Yeah.
He
shows
it to us.
Yeah.
And we believe it, and that's why at the end you believe that they're able to get to Mount Doom.
Yeah, and the only ones who would have been able to make it
Yeah.
to Mount Doom.
So he kind of convinces them to stay for dinner, because Frodo, when he hears all this about the Black Rider, he's like, "Oh, we got to go right now." And he's like, "Well, why don't you stay, and then when it's dark, I'll just take you for a ride on my wagon to the ferry." So they kind of go, "Oh, that makes more sense." And then they stay.
Yeah.
They get some nice mushrooms and bacon and ale and.
So if we want to talk about the comparison to the films, this part's very condensed. It's like one quick scene, and they just run through Farmer Maggot's land. And he's chasing them. You see the big bobbing scythe over the cornfield. The bouncing scythe over the. And they're like, "Oh no, we're on Farmer Maggot's land!" And they run and fall down the hill, and then they land on Merry and Pippin, because I think it was just
They
Frodo.
land on each other. They bump into each other in like the cornfield.
Oh yeah.
And then they all run. They see the scythe.
That's
and
right.
He's like, "You've been into Maggot's crop again."
Yeah.
And then they run. They fall over, and then they land. And
They roll down, and then they even reference the title of this chapter.
Yeah.
Because they like land on mushrooms, and they go, "Oh, it's a shortcut to mushroom." But that's not what it
a
is.
wink and a nod.
Yeah.
It's not the same kind of shortcut to mushrooms.
No, not at all.
But you were talking about how he gives them mushrooms, right? And that's the
Yeah, so he rides them to the ferry. They get there. They meet Mary. Well, there's like a kind of like
There's this moment
a
where
suspense. We're like, who is that?
You hear
Yeah.
the rider coming in the mist.
Farmer Maggot is driving them in the wagon, and they see this rider come through the mist, and it's like,
Crawling over the fields, which harkens back almost to the crawling.
crawling.
Like even that word,
yeah,
the mist was crawling over the fields, is exactly what it said.
and so Mary comes, and they're like, "Oh, it's another Black Rider," They give one of those "Who goes there" type addresses to him.
Yeah.
And he reveals himself to be. Oh, and he says a line that makes it sound like he's a Black Rider, doesn't he? He says like, "I'm looking for
Mr.
Baggins."
I want Mr. Baggins.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh no, it's so he's
In a muffled
is he
voice.
screwing with them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, man.
I like the whole scene of this. The whole setup of this is that they're riding in the mist. They don't have the lanterns on. They're just kind of like in stealth
Oh yeah, how
mode.
creepy is that? It's awesome.
Yeah.
And they see this rider come out, and it turns out to be Mary Brandybuck.
I just wondered in reading this, like, how long has Mary been waiting? He does mention, doesn't he mention? But does he know they're coming on that day? So
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess how long is from how long do we know? And I don't know. I've never really thought about it or looked into it. Is from Hobbiton to here? How much time is that? Do we know at all?
Yeah, I mean, because how many nights have they slept? We're talking a matter of days, right?
Right. So I guess Mary would know around this time.
Yeah,
so
they
he
left
would
on
sit
this
there
day,
and
and it's
wait.
going to be about 3 days or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Because they had to sleep the first night when he slept on the root on his
root,
back,
Yeah.
and then the second night was Gildor, I think.
Was it?
I think so.
It always
And
seems
then
like
this
it's
would
so
be the
much
third
longer
night.
to me for some reason.
Yeah, so it's 3 nights, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And then the night there, yeah. And so this is the fourth day, or the third night actually.
Yeah, because they actually leave at night, and they just like leave, and they start walking. The first sleep is like right away after they leave.
And so he comes and he turns around and he says to them, "Oh, I was Maggot." Farmer Maggot says, "I was nearly forgetting. Mrs. Maggot put this up for Mr. Baggins with her compliments," and he handed a basket down, moved off, followed by a chorus of thanks and goodnight. And inside the basket,
Mushrooms. I kind of like that
scent of mushrooms.
reconciliation between
Yeah.
Frodo
Yeah,
and
it's funny.
because he's like so fearful of him, and then when he gets like they're friends now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, oh yeah, you stole mushrooms from me. Here's mushrooms as a gift. Like just like now they're,
Well, it's almost like Bilbo's gifts.
yeah, kind of like
It's
you
almost
never
a
you never
backhanded
write me
gift.
letters. Here's a pen. Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, you want to steal my spoons? Here's some spoons." And he's like, "Oh, you gonna take mushrooms? Mushrooms!" He just throws mushrooms at him. So,
which I've never understood. A gift of mushrooms wouldn't mean that much to me personally.
yeah. They like mushrooms, I guess.
Some people really do.
Hobbits
I'm
are
not
so
a
into
big
cooking, and it's probably something that's big for them. I don't know.
simple things in life.
It's the little things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this chapter is a little bit of a setup chapter. We're getting somewhere. We're, and this is how Tolkien writes, is these traveling montages punctuated by action, and then finally kind of climaxing and giving way to a period of rest. And so right here we have a section that, I mean, it's still a little bit of a suspenseful chase sequence.
Yeah, you have
we still have the screeches of these things, and you're in the mist and you're hearing screeches all around, and it's like, and then Mary comes up and it's like, ah. I mean, that's still pretty that's still pretty action packed. We are getting, kind of to the next big thing, which is where we get to breathe, and so that's kind of what we're building towards here.
And Tom Bombadil.
Sorry.
Good old Tom.
I forgot about the most important thing.
Right.
So next week we're going to actually read 2 chapters. So this coming week, if you guys want to read A Conspiracy Unmasked and The Old Forest, and that will get us right up to Tom Bombadil, and then we'll have our Tom Bombadil Bonanza blowout.
The Tom Bombadil is awesome show.
Yeah.
No.
The Tom Bombadil is. We will convince everybody.
All of our haters.
Convince all of you, all of our haters and losers, of which there are many, that Tom Bombadil is the best. Essential to the book.
That's right.
Yeah. So so read Conspiracy Unmasked, and then read The Old Forest for next time.
Great.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks for being with us, John.
Yeah, we're going to move into our subscriber pub. What do we call it?
The Lord of the Babylon Bee, Lord of the Rings, Inn and Pub.
Inn and Pub. We're going to be Inn and Pub. We're going to answer some fan mail, some mail from haters and losers, and
we actually got hate mail this week.
And we're going to build on. We're going to do some more discussions.
Yeah.
So
join us.
Subscribe if you want, and join us here. All right, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Enjoy the reading this week.
Coming up next, for Babylon Bee subscribers.
Okay, so she says that we are falling into the Peter Jacksonification of Middle Earth.
That's fighting words.
He's described almost completely differently in the book than in the movie, which is like he actually looks like a tree, like a walking tree.
Yeah.
I don't know how I never made that connection.
Yeah, how could you do that?
It brings it all to life. It gives me rest from this crazy world. I totally agree.
This is what, like, to me, reading Lord of the Rings is a different experience than reading any other books. I'm going to a place.
Kyle and Dan would like to thank Seth and Dan Dillon for buying us cool swords and paying the bills, Adam Ford for creating our jobs, Ethan Nicole for creative direction, and all the writers at the Babylon Bee, Matthew McDavid for guiding studio operations, Patrick Green for show production, Caitlin Petty for laugh tracks, the Babylon Bee subscribers who make what we do possible, and you, the listener. Until next time, this is Austin Robertson, the voice of the Babylon Bee reads The Lord of the Rings, reminding you that we swears to serve the Master of the Precious. We will swear on the precious.